a lot of activity in the art market recently. I mean, many galleries have mushroomed all over India. Many have shut shop. There have been international auction houses like Christie's and Sotheby's who have their presence in India amongst Indian auction houses like Oceans, Astaguru, and Saffron Art. And the Indian Art Summit is already in its 4th edition, I think, this year. What do you think about this trend in India, and are you positive about?
Listen, the fact that the international auction houses now have dedicated departments for India is very good, because they do help regulate the market a little bit, and they do play by some, let's say, standards of conduct in this because otherwise the rest of the Indian market is pretty great. You know, there's a huge conflicts of interest between the auction houses and galleries. There's huge conflicts of interest between the artists and the galleries. So the art market everywhere in the world is rigged. It's just a bit more rigged in India than other places, which is kind of par for the course. So I don't think anybody's going to be worried about that. But what is interesting is that, you know, if the market becomes larger and larger and larger in size, then it becomes hard to manipulate it. Chola bronzes can't be manipulated. Why? There's a simple reason. Rabindranath Tagore paintings cannot be manipulated in cost or prices or Chandni Roy, because there isn't a gallery owner who owns 100 of them, which is in his house, so that he can put one Chola bronze on the market, buy it himself at an outrageous price, and then when you go to his gallery, say the other 99 are worth this much. So Chola bronzes is probably the epitome of Indian beauty in terms of sculpture and art. But I mean, it's a clean market, right? There's no manipulation in that market.
Except of course frames. And then the insurance against that is you buy it in the international market.
And you buy from Christie's, you give it back right away and you get your money back, right? So that's the thing. So you have to remember that this, I think what he said was very well to Sandeep, that, you know, there are different sets of this market. Some are highly manipulated markets. Contemporary art generally tends to be more manipulated. The masters tend to be less manipulated because nobody has 100 canvases to sell of Rembrandt.
Yeah.
But I think on that, Saloni, I think your question was, you know, with India emerging on the global scene, right? It's not just art. I mean, it's even in the business I'm in financial markets or money, you know, because the promise of 1.2 billion people and what that affords and so on and so forth. So I think that's just part of a bigger, broader macro trend about the emergence of India as a, you know, as a market, as a land of relevance globally, etc., etc. But I think where the jury is out, at least for me, is are Indians buying their culture back, right? And I compare this to what I observe with the Chinese and the Russians, who, you know, would be again two other societies that have gone through, you know, a fair amount of evolution in the last 10 years. And the pace at which they are bringing their culture back is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, you know, we don't even, you know, figure on the radar screen. So when will that really begin to happen, right? I don't know. But that is a phenomenon that I think is people are betting on that phenomenon happening as it's played out in those countries. But I think we'll have to wait and see.
Well, India has had pavilions. I mean, now I think Indian art is playing an important role globally. We do have a pavilion at the Prague Biennale this year and the Venice Biennale, and we are having important shows like the Indian Highway at Leon, and I think at the Pompidou Center as well. And I mean, you know, Indian art is being recognized globally. There are lots of Indian artists who are having their solo shows, you know, in Paris and Italy, this like literally over the summer. So
99%. Now you have to again go back to Sandeep's point. There's two different art markets. The art market of contemporary and modern Indian art, 99% plus is bought by Indians, right? Whereas the art market of Chola bronzes, 99% is bought by non-Indians. It's a global art market.
Yeah, very much.
Sandeep's the only one who's trying to bring his friends back to India.
I mean, this is more about aspirations of a country. I mean, when they feel secure in their status, their position, then they reach out. So the question, you know, Sandeep posed is, and at what point will Indians go out and acquire their heritage, their history back? It's not there yet. I mean, you can see that. I mean, the thing that is going to trigger that is the presence and availability of museums and public art spaces. until that happens, we're not going to go out and acquire our heritage back. So, we haven't reached the point where we're confident in our heritages yet. A few of us, few folks are, but you need a movement, not a few individuals, for that to make sense.
And I think, sorry, turning this into a bit of a dialogue, but yeah, you're right. The issue is, who's the repository and who's going to do that beyond individuals. And to give you an example, about 6 years ago, perhaps, or 5-6 years ago, there was a lady who was an English woman who I think lived in India for a number of years in the 60s and 70s, along with her husband, who created probably is the definitive collection of cartography on India. And this was her pension, right? So she wanted to sell it. She was in her 70s. It's a woman named Susan Gold, lots of books that she's written on Indian cartography. So, I had a call from one of the auction houses saying, would you be interested? And I said, sure, let's take a look. So they said, okay, we'll set it up. So I show up, and it's literally a room about 3 times this room, or at least 2 times. So I was like, wow, this is big. And the India office was, talking to her, and they wanted it for free. Obviously, this is a woman who can't afford to give it for free. But even if someone was willing to finance the acquisition and donate it, where's the certainty that this thing is going to be treated with respect? For those of you who've gone to Trivandrum, I was shocked 2 years ago when I went to the Ravi Verma Museum expecting, something, okay, even within an Indian context, something that would be relatively respectable. It was unbelievable. You had holes in canvases. It was absolutely poorly maintained. So I think, to Sanjay's point, those institutions, the mindsets, the attitudes, I think need to happen in a hurry before these things, disappear somewhere else.
Yeah, like everything, there needs to be role models. We have a few emerging, but the masses really look at, in our case, the government as a role model. And until that changes, I don't think art is really going to reach out and bring back our culture and heritage.
But I was mentioning to Sandeep today morning, in fact, that in Bombay there have been, examples of private-public partnerships where, like the Bhawdaji Lal Museum, which is a public space, has been completely revived by Bajaj Group, and they have appointed a director. So things like this can be done, and Tasneem Mehta is doing a great job. She's called for many exhibitions from the V&A, and has had contemporary artists have performances there and showcase their work, like Nikhil Chopra and Sudarshan Shetty. So you were talking about your antique book collection that you would like to donate to a library in Chennai, and he didn't want me to tell this to anyone here because he does have a large collection of antique books as well. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, where's the certainty that it's going to be, maintained, handled appropriately? Because these are fragile items. They've survived 400-500 years. The last thing you want is some guy.
Yeah, and I think this is where technology can really help.
Yeah.
You don't want people handling 400, 500-year-old books, but you do want people to have access to the contents of the books. And this is where, going online, Google Art is a good example. Bill Gates has put the Da Vinci Codex online. These are things that I think are very important in the Indian context. Because one, it allows you to reach out to billions of people, and two, it allows you to preserve the artwork. And you can keep it at home. I don't know how you're going to keep the cockroaches separate from the maps, though.
She was taking care of it recently.
Okay.
She just sent it back.
And then there's one line in his garage in London.
But I think balancing the online access and the preservation and storage of the artworks is a very important area to get to scale, at least the scale that India has.
But I think that, despite all the online excitement, this whole morning I spent with someone who told me to take my entire arts foundation online. And I think it's a great idea. There's something to be said about the actual physicality of objects, which is part of the thrill of the collector. And also when you see them in museums, even though you can't touch them or you can't access them, just seeing it up close, seeing the details, I don't think you can still see that even in three-dimensional.
Two things.